Blood pounded in Officer Martinez's ears as the handcuffs snapped shut. "You fit the description perfectly," he snarled at the tall black man in the expensive suit. The suspect's calm eyes never left his face, unsettling, almost pitying. In 18 hours, those same eyes would stare down at him from behind a judge's bench. This is one of those real-life stories that shatter everything you think you know about power. Black stories like this happen every night at gas stations across America, but few become the touching stories that expose how quickly tables can turn. Most life stories end with injustice. This one ends with something far more dangerous. Marcus Thompson didn't struggle as rough hands shoved him against his BMW. The Chevron station's harsh lights caught his torn sleeve, his scattered briefcase contents, his dignity intact despite the humiliation. Have you ever watched someone maintain perfect composure while being destroyed? Ever wondered what kind of person stays calm when they could end careers with a single phone call? The call crackled through Martinez's radio at 9:23 p.m. Armed robbery suspect, black male, 6'2", business attire, dark sedan. His pulse quickened as he wheeled into the Chevron station. 18 years on the force had taught him to trust his instincts, and tonight something felt different. Marcus Thompson was sealing his gas cap when twin spotlights flooded the parking lot. He turned with the slow, deliberate movements of someone who'd navigated these waters before. The charcoal suit caught the harsh light, expensive fabric, tailored cut, probably worth 3 months of police salary. "Step away from the vehicle," Martinez's voice carried across the asphalt. "Hands visible." Thompson complied immediately, setting down his leather briefcase with careful precision. No sudden moves, no nervous chatter. Just that unsettling calm that made Martinez's teeth itch. Officer Jackson flanked right as the second patrol car arrived. Standard formation. But as Martinez approached, weapon drawn and lowered, he noticed something that bothered him. The suspect wasn't sweating, wasn't making excuses. Just stood there with an almost professorial patience, like he was observing an interesting experiment. "You match the description of an armed robbery suspect," Martinez announced, stopping 6 feet away. "Need to see identification." "Certainly, officer." The voice was cultured, precise. "My wallet's in my inside jacket pocket. May I retrieve it?" That courtesy grated against Martinez's nerves. Most suspects either bolted, fought, or broke down. This one sounded like he was chairing a committee meeting. As Thompson reached into his jacket, Martinez glimpsed something that gave him pause, a boarding pass edge protruding from the breast pocket. First class. Chicago to Richmond. Today's date. Real airline stock, not some fake prop. Thompson produced an expensive wallet, extracting his license with the same measured control. Martinez studied it under his flashlight. Marcus Thompson, 47, local Richmond address. Photo matched, registration current. "Business in Chicago, Mr. Thompson?" "Legal conference. Flew back this afternoon, retrieved my car from long-term parking." Thompson gestured toward the pump. "Stopped for fuel on my way home." Jackson's radio popped with static. "All units, suspect apprehended on 5th Street. Armed robbery case closed." Martinez felt his jaw clench. The real perpetrator was in custody. But something about this man's composure needled him. Too controlled, too prepared. Like someone accustomed to being the smartest person in the room. During his police academy days, Martinez remembered reading about power dynamics in law enforcement encounters. How some individuals maintained psychological advantage through calm authority, making officers feel small and reactive. He'd sworn never to let anyone make him feel that way again. "Legal conference, huh?" Martinez stepped closer, invading personal space. "What kind of legal work?" "Civil rights litigation primarily. Constitutional law." Thompson's eyes never wavered. Not challenging, but not deferential either. Evaluating. "Civil rights," Martinez repeated, his tone sharpening. "One of those lawyers who sue cops for doing their jobs?" I represent citizens whose constitutional rights have been violated. The measured response felt like a slap. Martinez had seen enough lawyers in 18 years slick downtown attorneys who treated cops like barely educated thugs. This one had that same condescending politeness, that barely concealed superiority complex. A crowd was forming near the convenience store. 3 people held phones up, recording. Another viral police video brewing. Martinez could already imagine the edited clips, the inflammatory captions. You know what I think? Martinez raised his voice for the audience. Fancy suit, expensive car, flying first-class classic drug money cover. Thompson blinked slowly. Officer, your robbery suspect has been apprehended. Perhaps we could... Perhaps nothing. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Is that necessary? I've fully cooperated, and you have confirmation. I said turn around! The crowd murmured as Thompson complied, maintaining his dignity even as Martinez roughly secured the handcuffs. The metal clicked with unnecessary force. Martinez. Jackson looked uncomfortable. Dispatch confirmed the real suspect. Don't care what dispatch says. This guy's dirty. I can feel it. Martinez began searching Thompson's pockets aggressively. Probably has warrants, drug connections, something. From the jacket emerged the first-class boarding pass legitimate airline stock. A parking receipt time-stamped from Richmond International, business card holder. And something that made Martinez pause. A laminated courthouse parking pass, VIP access, judicial personnel. Martinez palmed the pass quickly, hiding it from Jackson. Some lawyer's special treatment card. More evidence of how the system favored people with money and connections over working cops. Empty the briefcase, Martinez ordered, kicking it toward Thompson's feet. Officer, those contain sensitive legal documents. I'll handle them however I want. Martinez unlatched the case, deliberately spilling contents across the asphalt. Legal briefs scattered in the evening breeze. A tablet computer clattered against concrete. File folders marked with case numbers spread like fallen leaves. One folder caught his attention. Whitman v. City of Richmond. Police misconduct class action. Martinez's blood chilled. Another cop-hating attorney, digging through police files, looking for ways to destroy careers and bankrupt departments. His own precinct had been targeted by similar lawsuits, good cops dragged through depositions, their reputations shredded by lawyers who'd never walked a beat. Well, well, Martinez held up the folder like evidence. Police misconduct, lawyer. Makes perfect sense now. Thompson's expression remained neutral, but Martinez caught something flicker in his eyes. Not fear, not anger. Something closer to profound disappointment. That case involves protecting citizens' constitutional rights, Thompson said quietly. Everyone deserves due process under... Everyone deserves protection from criminals, Martinez snapped. Not from cops doing their jobs. The crowd had swollen to 15 people. More phones recording. The convenience store clerk filmed from behind bulletproof glass. Social media was probably exploding with police brutality tags already. But Martinez was beyond caring. This symbol of everything wrong with the system. This suit-wearing, first-class flying, courthouse access-wielding lawyer would learn about real authority tonight. You're under arrest for suspicious activity, failure to comply, and resisting arrest. Thompson's eyebrows rose fractionally. Officer, I've complied with every instruction. Save it for your lawyer friends. As the transport van rumbled into the parking lot, Thompson spoke once more, his voice barely audible above the engine noise. Officer Martinez, I want you to remember this exact moment tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The specific time reference sent an odd chill through Martinez, but he dismissed it as another empty threat from another arrogant lawyer. By tomorrow morning, he'd forgotten the words entirely. He had no idea they would change his life forever. The transport van's diesel engine growled to life as Martinez forced Thompson toward the rear doors. What started as 30 onlookers had swollen to nearly 60 people, their phone screens creating a galaxy of recording lights that turned the gas station into an impromptu amphitheater. "This is police brutality," someone screamed from the crowd. "He didn't do nothing." Martinez's grip on Thompson's elbow tightened involuntarily. The lawyer's unnatural calm was beginning to feel like a psychological weapon. In 18 years of arrests, suspects either fought, fled, or fell apart. This one moved with the measured confidence of someone walking into his own courtroom. The van's reinforced doors gaped open like a metal mouth. Inside, scratched plexiglass and hard bench seats created a mobile cage that had transported thousands of suspects to their fate. But tonight, something felt fundamentally different. The air itself seemed charged with electricity that made Martinez's skin prickle. "Watch your head," Martinez said with theatrical courtesy, knowing the crowd was recording every word. As Thompson settled onto the unforgiving bench, his eyes found Martinez's through the partition. That same analytical gaze, like a chess master studying an opponent's opening moves, already calculating 10 steps ahead. Martinez's phone erupted with notifications. The first TikTok video was spreading like wildfire. "Innocent black man arrested at gas station." 73,000 views in 18 minutes. The comments section was a toxic storm of outrage and death threats. Jackson appeared beside him, his own device buzzing frantically. "Martinez, this is exploding online. Maybe we should..." "Should what? Let every criminal defense lawyer in the city think they can intimidate us?" Martinez pocketed his phone, but the damage was done. He could feel the crowd's energy shifting from curiosity to genuine anger. Someone had brought a portable speaker. Hip-hop music mixed with shouted slogans created an increasingly volatile soundtrack. Martinez recognized the warning signs. He'd seen enough peaceful protests transform into riots to know when a situation was approaching the tipping point. But what terrified him most was the courthouse parking pass burning like guilty evidence in his pocket. VIP judicial access wasn't handed out to random attorneys. You had to be somebody significant, a prosecutor, a public defender, maybe even a judge's clerk to rate that kind of privilege. "Last chance to walk away from this," Thompson's voice cut through the chaos, calm as a lake at dawn. The words weren't quite a threat, but they carried gravitational weight. Like a final warning from someone who understood consequences better than most. Martinez hated that professorial tone more than any curse or insult. "Save the legal lectures," Martinez snapped, slamming the van doors with enough force to rattle the reinforced glass. During the 20-minute ride to booking, Martinez watched his phone screen with growing horror. The videos were metastasizing across every platform. Twitter hashtags, Facebook shares, Instagram stories, each version more inflammatory than the last, edited to show only his most aggressive moments, stripped of all context. One clip featured dramatic orchestral music and text calling for his immediate termination. Another had been remixed with audio from famous civil rights speeches. A third showed his badge number in giant font with the caption, "Remember this face." Jackson rode in suffocating silence, occasionally glancing at his phone with the expression of someone watching a disaster unfold in real time. Martinez could see him scrolling through hundreds of comments, each more vicious than the last. "We should call Lieutenant Rodriguez," Jackson suggested as the booking station came into view. "And tell him what? That we arrested a suspicious person who fit a suspect description?" Martinez's voice cracked slightly. "That's literally our job." But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at his confidence like acid. He'd concealed evidence, hidden the parking pass, violated protocol. If internal affairs launched an investigation, that kind of detail could transform a routine arrest into a career-ending scandal. The booking station hummed with its usual Friday night symphony of misery. Drunk drivers arguing with breath test technicians. Domestic violence suspects nursing split lips and bruised knuckles. Drug dealers trying to negotiate plea bargains before they'd even been charged. Sergeant Williams looked up from his paperwork as they entered with Thompson. 27 years of processing suspects had given him an uncanny ability to read people instantly, and this one clearly didn't match the usual profile. "What have we got?" Williams asked, his tone already skeptical. "Suspicious person, matched robbery suspect description," Martinez explained, his words sounding increasingly hollow. "Failure to comply with lawful orders, resisting arrest." Williams pulled up the incident report on his terminal. "Computer says robbery suspect was apprehended on 5th Street 43 minutes ago. Case closed, suspect confessed." Martinez felt sweat bead on his forehead despite the air conditioning. This one was acting suspicious, had anti-police documents in his briefcase, probably part of some organized campaign to target law enforcement officers. Thompson spoke quietly, his first words since leaving the gas station. "Sergeant Williams, I'd like to exercise my right to a phone call, please." "Absolutely, sir." Williams's tone carried automatic respect that made Martinez's stomach clench. "Right this way." As Thompson was escorted to the phone alcove, Martinez strained to overhear the conversation. What he caught made his blood run cold. "Understand the unusual hour. No, I won't require legal representation. Wanted to inform you of the situation. Yes, I'll see you Monday morning at 9 sharp. Courtroom 7 as scheduled." Courtroom 7, Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Martinez felt the world tilt slightly off its axis. Thompson wasn't just calling a lawyer or a family member. He was talking to someone about a courtroom, a scheduled appearance, official business that couldn't wait until business hours. The booking process continued with mechanical precision, each step feeling more surreal than the last. Fingerprints revealed no criminal history. Photographs captured Thompson's composed dignity even in the degrading mugshot lighting. Personal effects inventory proceeded without incident. When they reached the property list, Martinez's pulse hammered in his temples. The courthouse parking pass felt like radioactive material in his pocket, evidence that could explode his entire career if discovered. "One leather briefcase with scattered legal documents," Williams dictated to his computer. "One first-class airline boarding pass, Chicago to Richmond, today's date. One leather wallet containing $93 cash and various credit cards." Thompson listened to the inventory with that same unsettling attention to detail, his eyes tracking every item mentioned and every item conspicuously omitted from the official record. At 12:17 a.m., Thompson was finally placed in holding cell 3. The concrete box contained a metal bench, a stainless steel sink, and little else designed for human comfort. But even in that deliberately dehumanizing environment, he sat with perfect posture, hands folded, looking for all the world like a CEO waiting for a board meeting to begin. Martinez observed through the reinforced window, his unease metastasizing into genuine fear. In 6 hours, the day shift would arrive with fresh eyes and uncomfortable questions. Supervisors would review the viral videos. Internal Affairs might launch preliminary inquiries. And at 9 a.m. Monday morning, something was happening in Courtroom 7 that involved Marcus Thompson directly. As Martinez finally headed home at 1:30 a.m., Thompson's parting words echoed in his mind like a prophecy. "Remember this exact moment tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. He had no idea that in 7.5 hours, he would be standing before Judge Marcus Thompson's bench, his career balanced on the edge of a gavel. The countdown had already begun. Martinez's phone screamed at 6:30 a.m., ripping him from nightmares filled with handcuffs and measuring eyes. 3 hours of tormented sleep hadn't quieted the dread eating through his chest like acid. His screen showed 62 missed calls and 847 unread messages. The gas station videos had metastasized into a national story overnight. Coffee burned his throat as he scrolled through headlines that made his hands shake. Richmond officer arrests innocent black man. Police brutality caught on camera. Federal investigation demanded. Each story felt like another nail in his career's coffin. His phone exploded with Lieutenant Rodriguez's ringtone. The sound hit Martinez like a death knell. "My office, now!" Rodriguez's voice carried the flat monotone of a superior who'd spent his morning fielding calls from federal oversight committees. Bring your incident report. And Martinez? Bring a union representative. Union reperteur federal oversight. Martinez's vision blurred as the implications crashed over him like a tsunami. This wasn't just internal affairs anymore. This was criminal liability territory. The drive to headquarters felt like riding in a hearse. Local news radio twisted the knife deeper. Sources confirm the arrested man is a prominent federal official whose identity is being withheld pending investigation. Federal official. They knew something that made Martinez's bowels turn to ice water. Rodriguez's office felt like a tomb when Martinez arrived at 7:45 a.m. The lieutenant sat rigid behind his desk. Martinez's hastily scrawled incident report spread before him like autopsy results. His face carried the expression of someone preparing to deliver a cancer diagnosis. Sit. Rodriguez didn't look up from the paperwork. Tell me everything you know about Marcus Thompson. Civil rights lawyer, anti-police activist, had litigation files targeting our department. Martinez's voice cracked like a teenager's. Seemed like organized harassment. Stop! Rodriguez finally raised his eyes, and Martinez saw something there that made his blood freeze. Not anger, not disappointment. Terror. Marcus Thompson is a federal circuit court judge, 23 years on the bench. He has exclusive jurisdiction over every police misconduct lawsuit filed in this district. The words detonated in Martinez's brain like grenades. Federal judge. 23 years. Exclusive jurisdiction. The courthouse parking pass he'd hidden suddenly transformed from minor evidence, tampering into potential federal obstruction charges. That's impossible, Martinez whispered, his voice barely audible over the roar of blood in his ears. He's just some attorney. I saw the civil rights files. Judge Thompson chairs the Federal Police Reform Commission. Rodriguez continued, each word falling like a sledgehammer. He personally reviews every excessive force settlement in 6 states. He determines federal funding for police departments. He decides which officers keep their badges and which ones face federal prosecution. Martinez felt reality disintegrating around him. Federal Police Reform Commission, 6-state jurisdiction, personal review authority. Every piece of evidence he'd dismissed as anti-police bias now revealed itself as legitimate federal oversight responsibility. Sir, I had no way of knowing. You concealed his federal courthouse credentials during booking. Rodriguez slid a document across the desk like serving divorce papers. VIP judicial parking pass. Hidden in your personal effects while filing false property reports. Internal affairs found it in your locker 20 minutes ago. The federal investigation notice swam before Martinez's eyes through a haze of terror and disbelief. Evidence tampering, filing false federal reports, civil rights violations under color of authority. Each charge carried potential decades in federal prison. Judge Thompson presides over Whitman v. City of Richmond this morning. Rodriguez's voice seemed to come from underwater. $50 million class action lawsuit alleging systematic police brutality. The same case whose confidential files you scattered across that parking lot like confetti. The cosmic irony was suffocating. Martinez had arrested the federal judge assigned to determine whether his entire department would be dismantled for civil rights violations. It was like handcuffing the Supreme Court justice during your own death penalty appeal. What happens to me? Martinez's question barely qualified as sound. Rodriguez checked his watch like timing and execution. Judge Thompson requested your presence at 9 a.m., courtroom 7, Federal Building. He wants to address this situation before the scheduled hearing begins. 8:20 a.m., 40 minutes to prepare for professional annihilation. Martinez drove through downtown Richmond feeling like a condemned man approaching the gallows, passing the Chevron station where his career had died 12 hours earlier. The federal courthouse loomed ahead like a marble mausoleum, its bronze doors and limestone columns representing 23 years of constitutional authority he'd spat on in a moment of ego and prejudice. Now those symbols felt like monuments to his spectacular stupidity. Security processing felt like preparation for lethal injection. Martinez emptied his pockets under the watchful eyes of federal marshals, who'd probably read his overnight briefing. Their expressions suggested professional curiosity about someone stupid enough to arrest a sitting federal judge. Courtroom 7 occupied the building's most prestigious floor, its mahogany paneling and brass fixtures radiating accumulated decades of federal jurisprudence. Martinez entered at 8:57 a.m. to find a gallery that looked like his professional wake. Lieutenant Rodriguez sat beside Captain Morrison, both wearing expressions suitable for viewing an open casket. Internal affairs investigators occupied the second row, their notepads ready to document career-ending testimony. A federal court reporter prepared her stenotype machine with the clinical precision of someone about to record legal history. At exactly 9:00 a.m., the side door opened with finality that echoed through the cathedral space. All rise for the Honorable Judge Marcus Thompson. The man who entered wearing black federal robes was identical to the person Martinez had handcuffed, degraded, and humiliated 12 hours earlier. But the transformation was absolute and devastating. The gas station had revealed a private citizen enduring official abuse. The courtroom unveiled a federal judge wielding the full constitutional authority of the United States government. Judge Thompson ascended to his elevated bench with the same measured dignity he'd maintained throughout his arrest. His eyes found Martinez immediately, and that familiar analytical gaze now carried the weight of federal law enforcement authority that could destroy lives with a signature. "Officer Martinez," Judge Thompson's voice filled the vaulted courtroom like the voice of institutional justice itself. "Approach the bench." Martinez walked forward on legs that felt disconnected from his body, each footstep echoing like gunshots in the oppressive silence. Standing before the elevated platform, he had to crane his neck upward to meet those measuring eyes, a physical reminder of how completely their power dynamic had inverted overnight. "Officer Martinez, do you recognize me?" "Yes, Your Honor." The words felt like swallowing broken glass mixed with acid. 12 hours ago, you placed me under arrest on suspicion of armed robbery. You handcuffed me, conducted a humiliating public search, scattered my official federal documents across a parking lot, and transported me to jail in front of 60 recording witnesses. You did this despite radio confirmation that the actual suspect had already been apprehended. Do you acknowledge these facts? Each word was precisely articulated, legally perfect, and devastatingly accurate. Martinez nodded, not trusting his voice to function without breaking. You also engaged in evidence tampering during the booking process. Specifically, you concealed my federal courthouse identification to hide the fact that you'd arrested a sitting judge. Do you admit to this violation of federal law? Yes, Your Honor. The admission felt like signing his own death warrant with a dull knife. Judge Thompson leaned forward, his expression shifting almost imperceptibly. For a terrifying moment, Martinez thought he detected something that might have been satisfaction. The satisfaction of absolute power about to be exercised without mercy. Officer Martinez, I have spent 23 years on this bench reviewing cases involving officers who confused authority with righteousness. Officers who let prejudice override judgment. Officers who forgot that their oath was to constitutional law, not personal ego. Martinez stood frozen, waiting for the professional execution. Federal charges, criminal prosecution, career destruction broadcast across every platform that had already marked him for annihilation. Judge Thompson paused, studying Martinez with those analytical eyes that seemed to peer directly into his soul. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made the courtroom feel like a confessional. However, Officer Martinez, I believe justice serves society better through education than destruction. You will participate in this morning's proceedings as a witness for the court. You will provide honest testimony about last night's events, and you will help establish how institutional bias translates into individual misconduct. A lifeline, thrown to a drowning man at the last possible second. In exchange, I will recommend that federal criminal charges not be pursued against you personally. Your department will implement comprehensive reforms under federal supervision, and you will serve as a case study in how unconscious prejudice nearly destroyed two careers, yours and mine. Martinez's knees nearly buckled with relief so profound it felt like resurrection. Do you accept this arrangement, Officer Martinez? Yes, Your Honor. Completely, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. Judge Thompson's gavel fell once, sealing their agreement with the finality of constitutional law. Let the record reflect Officer Martinez's cooperation. Court will recess to prepare for formal proceedings. As the sound faded, Martinez realized his worst mistake had become his greatest teacher. The man he'd arrested for fitting the description had just demonstrated what true authority looked like. The power to choose mercy over vengeance, education over destruction. Justice, it turned out, was more complex than handcuffs and humble pie. The 10-minute recess felt like 10 hours of purgatory. Martinez sat in the gallery's front row, hyper-aware of every whisper, every sideways glance, every camera phone pointed in his direction. The courtroom filled steadily with attorneys, city officials, and media representatives drawn by the overnight scandal that had transformed a routine police misconduct hearing into a federal spectacle. At 9:15 a.m. sharp, Judge Thompson returned to his bench with the measured authority of someone about to reshape institutional power. The court stenographer's fingers hovered over her machine like a pianist preparing for a difficult concerto. In the gallery, Martinez counted 3 television cameras and at least a dozen reporters whose notebooks would soon chronicle his professional resurrection or final destruction. The court calls Whitman v. City of Richmond to order, Judge Thompson announced, his voice carrying the weight of 23 years of federal jurisprudence. This class action lawsuit alleges systematic civil rights violations by the Richmond Police Department, seeking damages in excess of $50 million and comprehensive federal oversight of departmental operations. $50 million. The number hit the assembled city officials like a physical blow. Mayor Davidson shifted uncomfortably in the third row while City Attorney Williams frantically shuffled through legal briefs that had suddenly become inadequate to address the morning's developments. Before we proceed with scheduled testimony, Judge Thompson continued, the court will address recent events that have provided this case with unprecedented real-time evidence of the alleged misconduct patterns. Martinez felt every eye in the courtroom focus on him like laser beams. His throat constricted as Judge Thompson's gaze settled on him with the weight of constitutional authority. Officer Martinez, please take the witness stand. The walk to the witness box felt like a condemned man's final march. Martinez placed his hand on the Bible, swearing to tell the truth that would either redeem or destroy what remained of his career. The court reporter's fingers began their mechanical dance across the stenotype keys, recording words that would become permanent federal record. Officer Martinez, Judge Thompson began, please describe the events of last evening, beginning with your response to the robbery call. For the next 40 minutes, Martinez provided testimony that would become a textbook case study in unconscious bias and institutional prejudice. He described his initial assumptions about Thompson's expensive suit and calm demeanor, his growing irritation with Thompson's educated speech patterns and professional courtesy, his decision to proceed with the arrest despite radio confirmation that the real suspect had been apprehended. Officer Martinez, what specifically about Judge Thompson's behavior made you suspicious after learning the robbery suspect was already in custody? The question hung in the air like a scalpel prepared to dissect motivation. Martinez felt sweat bead on his forehead as he struggled to articulate the ugly truth of his prejudice. His calm attitude, Your Honor. Most people would be upset, angry, demanding to know why they were being detained. He just accepted it, like he was studying me. It made me think he was hiding something. You interpreted composure under pressure as evidence of guilt? Yes, Your Honor. You found educated speech patterns suspicious? Yes, Your Honor. You considered expensive clothing and first-class travel tickets to be indicators of criminal activity? Each question stripped away another layer of justification, revealing the raw prejudice beneath. Martinez nodded miserably, his shame broadcast to a courtroom full of witnesses and a media audience measuring in millions. Judge Thompson turned to address the broader courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, Officer Martinez's testimony provides this court with precise documentation of how institutional bias translates into individual misconduct. His honest account demonstrates the systematic nature of the civil rights violations alleged in this lawsuit. The plaintiff's attorney, Sarah Morgan, rose from her table with the satisfaction of someone whose case had just been proven beyond any reasonable doubt. Your Honor, the plaintiff's statistical analysis identified exactly this pattern of discriminatory enforcement. Officer Martinez's testimony confirms our data with remarkable precision. Judge Thompson nodded toward Morgan. Present your statistical evidence, counselor. Chen activated a large monitor that displayed color-coded charts and graphs representing 3 years of police data analysis. The numbers were damning in their mathematical clarity. Your Honor, our analysis of 47,000 traffic stops conducted by the Richmond Police Department reveals systematic racial disparities that violate constitutional equal protection guarantees. The first chart showed traffic stop rates by race and neighborhood. Black motorists were stopped at rates 340% higher than white motorists in identical circumstances. The disparity was most pronounced in affluent areas where black drivers were presumed to be out of place. The data shows that officers like Martinez consistently interpret legitimate behavior as suspicious when exhibited by black citizens. Professional attire becomes drug dealer disguise. Expensive vehicles become stolen property. Calm cooperation becomes suspicious behavior. Chen clicked to the next display. Use of force statistics that made several city officials visibly wince. Physical force was applied in 67% of arrests involving black suspects, compared to 23% for white suspects in identical circumstances. Handcuffs were used 89% more frequently. Weapons were drawn 156% more often. Judge Thompson studied the data with the analytical precision that had made him one of the most respected federal judges in the circuit. Ms. Morgan, please correlate this statistical analysis with complaint resolution procedures. The final chart was the most damaging of all. Of 312 excessive force complaints filed against the Richmond Police Department over 3 years, only 8% had resulted in officer discipline. The remaining 92% were dismissed as unfounded or unsubstantiated, despite video evidence and witness testimony. Your Honor, Morgan continued, the Richmond Police Department has created a culture of impunity that encourages officers to act on racial bias without fear of consequences. Officer Martinez's arrest of Judge Thompson represents the logical endpoint of this systematic breakdown of constitutional accountability. City Attorney Williams rose desperately from the defense table. Your Honor, Officer Martinez's actions represent an isolated incident by a single officer, not systematic departmental policy. Counselor, Judge Thompson's voice cut through the defense argument like a judicial scalpel. Officer Martinez's testimony directly contradicts your assertion. His behavior was consistent with training, departmental culture, and peer expectations. This was not aberrant conduct. This was standard operating procedure. The mathematical precision of the evidence left no room for legal maneuvering. The Richmond Police Department wasn't facing a single civil rights violation. They were confronting systematic constitutional breakdown that had been documented, quantified, and now personally witnessed by a federal judge. Judge Thompson leaned back in his chair, considering the accumulated evidence with the methodical precision of someone about to render institutional judgment. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of federal authority backed by constitutional law. This court finds overwhelming evidence of systematic civil rights violations by the Richmond Police Department. The statistical analysis presented by the plaintiffs, combined with Officer Martinez's candid testimony about departmental culture and individual bias, establishes a pattern of misconduct that violates the 14th Amendment's equal protection guarantees. The courtroom held its collective breath as Judge Thompson prepared to announce his ruling. The City of Richmond will implement comprehensive police reform under federal supervision. These reforms will include mandatory bias training for all officers, real-time body camera monitoring with civilian oversight, and an independent complaint review process with community representation. Mayor Davidson's face went ashen as the financial implications crystallized. Federal oversight meant millions in monitoring costs, retraining expenses, and infrastructure upgrades that would strain the city budget for years. Additionally, Judge Thompson continued, the court awards damages to the plaintiff class in the amount of $12 million to be distributed among victims of documented civil rights violations. $12 million. Not the full $50 million the plaintiffs had sought, but enough to send a clear message that constitutional violations carried real financial consequences. Finally, Judge Thompson's gaze found Martinez in the witness box. Officer Martinez will serve as the primary training officer for the Bias Recognition Program. His experience will help other officers understand how unconscious prejudice can destroy careers and violate citizens' fundamental rights. Martinez felt a strange mixture of relief and profound responsibility settle over him. Not destruction, but transformation. Not an ending, but a beginning he'd never imagined possible. This court is adjourned, Judge Thompson announced, his gavel falling with the finality of constitutional justice. As the courtroom emptied, Martinez realized that his worst mistake had become the catalyst for systematic change that would protect thousands of future citizens from experiencing what Judge Thompson had endured. Sometimes justice required personal humiliation to achieve institutional transformation. 6 months later, Officer Martinez stood before a classroom of 37 police recruits, his federal court testimony projected on the whiteboard behind him like a cautionary monument. The Richmond Police Training Academy had been transformed from a place that bred institutional bias into a laboratory for constitutional accountability. On September 15th of last year, Martinez began his presentation. I arrested a federal judge because he fit my preconceived notion of what a criminal looks like. My assumptions nearly destroyed 2 careers and cost the city $12 million in civil rights damages. The recruits, a deliberately diverse cohort selected under the new federal oversight requirements, listened with the rapt attention of people whose careers depended on learning from others' catastrophic mistakes. Martinez had delivered this presentation 127 times to police departments across 6 states, but it never got easier to relive his moment of spectacular prejudice. Behind the recruits sat Lieutenant Rodriguez, now Chief of Police, following a federal mandate for new leadership. His promotion came with explicit instructions to implement Judge Thompson's reforms or face Department of Justice intervention. The transformation had been swift and uncompromising. The Thompson Protocol, Martinez continued, clicking to the next slide, requires real-time body camera review for any arrest involving subjective factors like suspicious behavior or failure to comply. The new system connected every officer's body camera to a central monitoring station where civilian oversight specialists could intervene during potentially problematic encounters. Within 6 months, use of force incidents had dropped 43%, while citizen complaints decreased 67%. Martinez's phone buzzed with a text from his partner, Officer Jackson, who'd been assigned to the new Community Relations Division. Neighborhood Watch meeting tonight went great. Mrs. Williams wants to recommend you for the Community Service Award. The irony wasn't lost on Martinez. The same community that had filmed his viral arrest now championed his transformation into a bridge between law enforcement and civil rights advocacy. His testimony had become required viewing at police academies nationwide, a 20-minute masterclass in how unconscious bias could explode into constitutional crisis. The financial impact was immediate and severe. Martinez explained to the recruits. $12 million in damages, $4 million in federal monitoring costs, $2 million for technology upgrades, $8 million for comprehensive retraining programs. The numbers were real, extracted from taxpayers who deserved better from their police force. But the institutional changes those numbers had purchased were already producing measurable results. The Richmond Police Department's crime clearance rate had actually improved under federal oversight, rising from 64% to 71%, as community trust increased cooperation with investigations. Officer retention rates increased as the toxic culture of impunity was replaced with professional accountability standards. Martinez clicked to a slide showing Judge Thompson's photograph from his investiture ceremony 23 years earlier. Federal Circuit Judge Marcus Thompson could have destroyed my career, pursued criminal charges, and ended my freedom. Instead, he chose education over punishment, transformation over vengeance. The classroom was silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the scratch of pens on notepads. These recruits would graduate into a fundamentally different police culture than the one that had shaped Martinez's prejudices. Judge Thompson's decision reflected 23 years of judicial experience in constitutional law, Martinez continued. He understood that individual punishment without systematic reform just creates individual scapegoats while leaving institutional problems untouched. Through the training academy's windows, Martinez could see the federal courthouse where his life had changed 6 months ago. Judge Thompson continued his regular caseload while serving as an informal consultant to the police reform process, his insights helping shape policies that would prevent future officers from making Martinez's mistakes. The new policies were comprehensive and specific. Officers who made arrests based solely on suspicious behavior faced mandatory bias counseling. Body camera footage was reviewed by independent civilian monitors within 24 hours. Complaint investigations were conducted by community oversight boards with subpoena power. The Citizen Watch mobile app, Martinez explained, showing the final slide, allows real-time reporting of police interactions with GPS tracking and automatic video upload to civilian oversight offices. The app had been downloaded 47,000 times in Richmond alone, creating a network of community accountability that made officers more conscious of their behavior during every public interaction. Complaints filed through the app received responses within 48 hours instead of the previous 6-month delays. Martinez concluded his presentation the same way he always did. Judge Thompson turned the worst night of my career into the most important lesson of my life. Constitutional accountability isn't the enemy of effective policing, it's the foundation that makes effective policing possible. As the recruits filed out for their next class on community relations, Martinez reflected on how completely his professional identity had transformed, from a symbol of police misconduct to a teacher of constitutional accountability, from viral villain to reform advocate. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Judge Thompson's clerk. Judge Thompson requests your presence at tomorrow's Police Reform Commission meeting. Your insights on body camera protocols are needed for the Federal Oversight Report. Martinez smiled as he packed up his presentation materials. 6 months ago, Judge Thompson's request for his presence had terrified him. Now it represented partnership in creating systematic change that would protect constitutional rights while supporting effective law enforcement. The irony was perfect. The officer who'd arrested a judge for fitting a description was now helping that judge ensure no citizen would ever face similar injustice. 1 year after that September night at the Chevron station, Martinez stood in the same spot where his assumptions had collided with reality. The gas pumps looked identical, but everything else had changed beyond recognition. A bronze plaque now marked the location where institutional bias met constitutional accountability, installed by the Richmond Civil Rights Commission as a permanent reminder that justice could emerge from injustice. The viral videos that had threatened to destroy his career now served as training materials in police academies across the nation. Over 2.3 million law enforcement officers had watched his testimony, making it the most viewed police reform presentation in federal training history. His moment of spectacular prejudice had become a catalyst for systematic change affecting hundreds of thousands of citizens. Judge Thompson's Federal Police Reform Commission had expanded the Richmond model to 47 cities, preventing an estimated 12,000 civil rights violations while improving police effectiveness ratings by an average of 34%. The Thompson Protocol's real-time oversight system had been adopted by departments serving 18 million Americans. Martinez's phone showed a text from Officer Jackson. Community Relations Division report, complaints down 71% this year. Citizen satisfaction up 52%. Chief Rodriguez wants to expand your training program to 5 more states. These real-life stories of transformation remind us that Black stories of resilience can become touching stories of systematic justice. When individual life stories intersect with institutional accountability, entire communities benefit from one person's courage under impossible pressure. The financial impact had been transformative rather than punitive. Richmond's federal oversight costs totaled $23 million over 18 months, but the city's insurance premiums dropped $8 million annually due to reduced liability exposure. Property values in previously over-policed neighborhoods increased 19% as community trust improved. Martinez pulled out his phone to record a brief video message for the police reform conference he'd address tomorrow in Chicago, the same city where Judge Thompson had been traveling when their lives intersected at this gas station. "Standing here where it all started," he said to the camera, "I want every officer watching this to remember that our oath is to constitutional law, not personal assumptions. Every citizen deserves the dignity Judge Thompson maintained, even when I failed to provide it." The video would join thousands of others in a digital archive documenting how institutional change emerges from individual accountability. Martinez had become living proof that people could transform their worst mistakes into society's greatest improvements. His partnership with Judge Thompson had evolved into genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared commitment to constitutional justice. They spoke monthly about reform implementation, with Thompson's judicial insights balancing Martinez's street-level experience. The gas station's security cameras that had recorded his viral disgrace now captured something different. Officers conducting respectful traffic stops, citizens cooperating with professional law enforcement, and a community where constitutional rights were protected rather than violated. Have you witnessed similar injustices in your community? These stories matter because they show how individual courage can spark institutional transformation. Share your experiences in the comments below. Every voice contributes to building accountability that protects everyone's rights. Hit subscribe to stay informed about stories where personal growth creates systematic change. Share this video to spread awareness about how working within the system can fix the system's deepest flaws. Sometimes the most powerful response to injustice isn't fighting the institution, it's becoming the person who transforms it from within. Constitutional accountability serves everyone, citizens who deserve protection, and officers who deserve professional pride. Remember, real change happens when real people choose growth over grievance, education over revenge, and systematic reform over individual punishment. Justice isn't just about consequences, it's about creating a future where those consequences become unnecessary.